Right. Hello. Good evening. Bad evening. Whatever. This is Ask George after England's record ODI defeat.
Mumbai bye. That's the genius.
Hello. How are you?
I mean, I'm well.
That's my question. You're more
Yeah,
well.
okay. Yeah, no. I'm well. I'm a little bit shell shocked, and I suspect I'm not out here quite as long as I thought. But I'm okay, thank you.
Well, we've got about 25 questions here, so we better let's get going.
Let's do it. Let's do
Um,
it.
Sasi Bushan asks, "I'm yet to come to terms as to what happened to the England team today. Do you have any ideas?"
Yeah, well, they sow a little bit, don't they? They haven't really invested in ODI cricket for 4 years. It used to be their priority. Now it isn't. They've neglected it, and ODI cricket's given them a kick up the arse. That's a very broad answer. They took some risks. They came up against a very hungry, very good South Africa side. Their lack of bowling was exposed. They were definitely a bit unlucky. Reece Topley was bowling really nicely until his finger injury. And actually, amid the carnage of everything that's happened today, I do want to say that I think Reece Topley and Adil Rashid have been really brave. Reece Topley was clearly injured. I mean, I'm almost certain his World Cup's over. He has got a fracture. He's at the hospital as we speak, and he's just waiting to find out how long he's out, but he'll be out for the tournament, I'm pretty sure. Meanwhile, Adil Rashid looked so ill. I couldn't be certain, but it looked like he was thrown upside the boundary, and he was sitting down between balls. We've all seen players who would have come off in those conditions and hidden on a very flat wicket against a good batting side, and neither of them did. So, amid all the criticism they're going to get, I got some praise for that. That was brave, and without them able to bowl at their best, and I actually thought Rash did pretty well. England were exposed. They didn't have any death bowlers. I've put the figures for each of their last overs in my piece, but they're probably going for an average of 18, 19, 20 and over. And you can't do that. Usually, the England side that achieved super things in 2019 batted beyond the horizon and had copious bowling options. They barely had 5 bowlers today. A couple of them had really bad days, Mark Wood included. Mark Wood and Gus Atkinson don't appear to have any variations whatsoever. The only variation really was whether they were hit for 4 or 6. And it left Jos Buttler in an impossible position. And then, so by the time you've conceded 399, most they've ever conceded, by the way, you then are in a position where you've got to go all out with the batting. You lose an early one, you fall behind, you've got to keep going. That sort of collapse can happen. It's maybe a bit of a problem with the format that you can get these very one-sided games. And they fell away. So I wouldn't read too much into the batting, but the bowling has been consistently mediocre all tournament. And that's by and large what happened. But I go back to the broader point. They haven't invested in ODI cricket. They thought they could get by with their T20 skills, and they've been found out.
On that, Ron Martin asks, how will the ECB/England blame county cricket for this World Cup debacle? I suspect this isn't in the question, but I suspect a lot of the assumptions that you're talking about the 100 when you talk about the lack of investment in ODI cricket. But actually, the reality is, I think, as is in your piece, England very rarely put out their first choice side when they have played ODIs. They probably haven't played as many ODIs as during the previous cycle as well. I mean, it's a much broader theme, isn't it, than just talking about what domestic schedule looks like.
Yes, I mean the 100. We might disagree here. The 100 is a problem because you have a situation like Gus Atkinson, for example. I think what did he play? 2 list day games before playing for England.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, now I think he's played 6. I think
he's played double his ODI games. Yeah.
Well, right.
He's played double his list day games, but for England as for more than double his list day games for England. Sorry.
And I think he's only bowled 10 overs once, so he hasn't had the variety, the experience. He hasn't had to learn the variations, the difficulties. And it's odd in a time when we talk about attention to detail and everything else, not to do that. So that is a problem. I think that even 100 advocates would accept that the schedule isn't ideal from a 50 over perspective. But that would be simplistic. How do they blame county cricket? Well, county cricket isn't being given a chance to produce the players that might be ready for the international side, but I will always tell you that county cricket is the solution. But you would have to invest in a domestic 50-over game, and to do that, you've got to almost rip up the schedule as it is and start again. And there, the 100 is a great big issue in the middle of the season. But it's not just about that. The fact is that the England players and the England management throughout have prioritised franchise cricket because that's where a lot of money is. The players will always say that international cricket is their priority, but actually, do they always walk that talk? Not sure they do. But a lot of players rested from ODI cricket in the last few years. How many times have England put out their full strength side this year? Have they at all? Maybe once or twice. So they didn't prioritise this, as I said. So yeah, and look, I'm always going to pretty much say that the counties should be the solution, or the rest of it. But a few years ago, when the ECB offered them this 1.3 million for this new tournament, they were pretty much like kids taking sweets from a stranger and getting into the back of an unmarked van. So it is on the counties. From that day that happened in 2016 or 17, almost everything that's happened since has been inevitable. So they took, as cricket does nearly every time, the short-term financial inducement and accepted the long-term cricketing pain. So it's kind of their fault too.
Similarly on that, we've got another 100 related question. Not necessarily 100 related question, let's turn the other way around. Eric Loveland Heath says, how much longer can the ECB continue with a format no one else plays ahead of the one they play in World Cups? I guess turn that around and say, take the 100 out of it for a second, ask where you can fit a one-day comp in, as you've sort of said there isn't really.
Well, I'm going to say the same thing, and it's got to the stage where it's almost unacceptable. But at the 100, while you got the 100, you got a problem. And I've always said, I quite enjoy the 100, and there's lots of quite good things about the 100. But I would say that there was nothing achieved with the 100 which couldn't have been achieved with other formats. I've always said that. And also, it's not the 100 that's the problem. The 100's kind of fun. But the collateral damage that comes with the 100 is substantial and was not unpredictable. This is not unpredictable. Equally, I don't want to just be quoted as saying it's all the 100's fault. I think we've established that it's not, but it is a factor. And when you start looking at solutions, how do you build a solution while you've got this great big issue in the middle of the summer? It's very difficult. And what they'll do, I'm afraid, is they'll say, okay, let's play first class cricket during the 100 instead. And then you're just changing what the problem is. So it's a problem. Look, who knows how long the 50-over format's got, but the ECB is hastening its decline by this display at the World Cup, it's a dirty protest of a performance at this stage.
Away from that, JB asks, is Jos struggling under the weight of captaincy? Bear in mind, he won a World Cup this time last year. But
I thought he was excellent in the T20 World Cup. I thought he was calm and brave and tactically really astute. And also he led from the front with his performances up to a point anyway. So I thought he was terrific. Now, right now, he looks a bit dour, a bit sour. He's not performing great. And it's hard for me to sit here and say he's doing a particularly good job because tactically, he made some gambles today. They did not work, did they?
I think he was on hiding. They were on a hiding to nothing once they picked the side they did, and once Topley went off, and once there was uncertainty about whether he'd come back on. I think he said himself in the post-match, it was a lottery, wasn't it? They were trying to fiddle overs from everywhere, not knowing whether they would get more of Reece, and then they did. And he didn't bowl out, did he? But that
I don't think he can feel his fingers.
No,
he has got a fracture on his index finger of his bowling hand. It's the last thing. He's left-handed, obviously, but you'd be. It's a big deal for a bowler, particularly to try and use their death skills. So he sort of bowled a bit floaty length, didn't he? And got murdered.
He also fielded one off his own bowling just after he came back on as well, which was very similar to one that actually caused the damage. That can't have made it any better.
But no, it can't. But look, they did gamble. Because there's a reason why you have more than 5 bowlers in the side, isn't there? So they did gamble, and it didn't work out. But, let's not pretend that Chris Woakes and Sam Curran are bowl great in previous games. Let's not pretend that Liam Livingston had batted great. They weren't completely unreasonable decisions. Equally, I think they've got the batting second thing wrong, because I've been here and I'm not convinced the dew is as much of an issue as they think it is. But they're out there more, and they're insisting it is. There's no evidence for it, though, is there? There wasn't a lot of evidence that batting got easier. Anyway, but at least they're consistent with it. But everything they did went wrong. It doesn't mean that the decision was wrong. I'm going to defend him a bit there. Decisions aren't necessarily right or wrong. You just make them right or wrong by your actions subsequently. Anyway, he doesn't appear to be lifting the team in any way, just in that force of personality thing that Ben Stokes has had at times. But are they leadable? However good you are, is that true? I was going to say, however good you are at poker, if you're dealt a rubbish hand, you are going to struggle. I mean, I know you can bluff up to a point, but you're going to struggle, aren't you? And I don't think he's been dealt a handful of aces. I think he's been dealt, an old side who aren't playing a lot of ODI cricket, don't know their best formulas, and they're a bit of a shambles. Just blaming the captain and coach, I think, is a bit simplistic. I think there are structural issues. But I did think this after the last Ashes, the one in Australia. I thought it was all structural stuff and that it was pointless to just fire the captain and coach. And they fired the captain and coach, and the next ones came in and were quite inspiring. So, maybe leadership is an issue. I mean, look, there's no way you could have a performance like this and it can keep going on and you keep your job. I mean,
well, it's
a record-breaking loss.
Well, Graham Downey asked that question, and I guess with the same caveat that Matthew Mott won a World Cup 12 months ago. Graham Downey asked, should Matthew Mott be sacked after the tournament? He says in brackets, his 50-over record is woeful. He won the last Women's World Cup, of course, coming into this. So he does actually come into this on the back of winning a 50-over World Cup. But that's his question. You've sort of answered it there. I mean, there's more to it than what's going on these few weeks, and they've had a fair bit conspire against them today.
Yeah, it does feel simplistic to me to do that. Having said that, I don't know exactly what he does, but what it really needs to happen is for someone to shake the decision makers at the ECB, take them by the shoulders and say, if you're taking World Cup seriously, we've got to prepare better. Just to put it in perspective, there's a real danger, depends how the qualification is done. England won't qualify, GB, is it? Won't qualify for the Olympics. And if the next World Cup was a 10-team World Cup, and it's not, I'm not sure that England would qualify automatically. I mean, they've dropped to 6th the last time I looked in the rankings, and they could go, don't be complacent about this. Don't be complacent about it. Look where West Indies are. So things can change real fast. And, England gambled on thinking that this format wasn't so important, but we've got 2 more World Cups in the schedule, 27 and 31. I don't know, we're just not going to take it very seriously anymore. A bit weird, isn't it? So it's not working, is it? The structure, the format, everything they're doing at the moment. You can't not play ODIs, then turn up the team that used to be good 4 years ago and think it'll be all right on the night. And that's what they've done. Now, is that Matthew Mott's fault? I'm not sure it is. But will he be strong enough to change it? No, I'm not sure he will either, no.
Manuel Hussain asked a question, I think, on that. Actually, he says, what are England missing from 2019? Is the captaincy of Morgan, the pace of Archer, English conditions, all things he suggests?
Well, I don't think English conditions were particularly relevant. I mean, that ODI side built its reputation playing on roads, really, and they played this incredibly aggressive style of batting cricket. And the last piece of the jigsaw was Jofra Archer, who was magnificent. But the pitches in the World Cup weren't roads, actually. And actually, they were a good all-round side, Who do they miss most? I mean, you can make a case for Jofra. I mean, Jofra's a special player. He's going home tonight, by the way, back to England. No idea why he was here. Been here for 3 days, I reckon. Money well spent. And you could make a case that Liam Plunkett has been hugely missed. But you could make a case that Chris Woakes at his best. Jason Roy was a massive loss. And a really good example, actually. That's good for you for bringing it up. The 2016 T20 World Cup here in Mumbai, where South Africa scored something like 235, and England won, and they just played blisteringly good cricket, and it was led by Roy. I think he got, say, 45 off 17, ring a bell, something like that, something ridiculous. Joe Root got 83, I think, but Alex Hales 17 off 6, something like that. They just the whole way through they played very aggressive, selfless, brave, audacious, powerful cricket. And in the World Cup, if you remember, England had lost 3 games, 2 in succession. Jason Roy was just beginning to come back into the side and absolutely smashed it when he came back in. Played brilliantly. And he was the sort of player that could hit bowlers off their attacks. Now, the game has changed a bit. I did a piece which took ages. How we do sometimes. And you do this piece, which I thought was quite important, about how the balls have changed. And it's changed ODI cricket a bit. But it hasn't got the attention it should have done. So I'm mentioning it now because it has changed. And that might be one of the reasons why Jason Roy struggled a bit, because now the balls move around for longer and do a bit more. And that wasn't his skill. But you're right. There's a combination of things. And of course, yes, Owen Morgan's captaincy. But he was a fading power as a player, I think, even by 2019. Obviously had that super game against Afghanistan. But, Jos was the natural successor. I've seen him be very good. I don't think we should make these simplistic judgments. I don't think it's a sticking plaster solution. I don't think if you made, say, Ben Stokes captain, was he the next in line? I don't know. I don't know that would suddenly fix everything. I don't think it would. So they're missing quite a lot of people. But the main thing they're missing is that in 2019, it was their priority for 4 years. They played inside out and upside down. They played all around the world. They got tested every different way. And they had a really bloody good side at the end of it. Now, 4 games in, they've changed the side completely. Was it three changes for this game? Changed the balance of the side.
Everyone was searching already, isn't it?
Yeah, and I could talk you through even the 2010 side. I could talk you through the formula that England had in that tournament, which they only had to change once when Michael Yardy had a bad game dodgy game in the final, and Lou Wright came in and bowled one over. But basically, you knew exactly what they're going to do and when, and it was the same with the 19 side, really. And that's one of the things I was so impressed with Jos in Australia last year. He didn't have that. He didn't have a formula. He had to change it around. But maybe the skills that you have, you need to be a better player, I think, in some ways in ODI cricket. You can't hide. Well, you can't. That's unfair. But maybe you need more skills than the variations that you maybe need in 4 overs. 10 overs is quite a long time to be out there, and that's why it's a format that I think still has a lot of merit, still very enjoyable, because it's a bit of T20 and a bit of Test, isn't it? You need to be a very good player, and it exposes you a little bit if you don't have those variations and skills, and that's what we've seen. So I think the main thing is they just haven't prepared. What's that old thing that old poster? Prepare to fail. No, you know what I mean. Fail to prepare.
That's the one.
Yeah. Leave it there. I say that old poster we all know so well, they get it wrong.